You've been the one who always showed up, the one who gave, listened, waited, and believed that consistency would earn respect. But now you see it, your effort became background noise. They don't look at you the same way. Your presence lost its weight. This happens when generosity turns into dependency, when you forget your value in the process of proving it. But here's the truth you must face. You trained them to take you for granted. Every time you rushed to fix things, you told them your peace was negotiable. Every time you begged to be seen, you lowered your worth. It's time to stop that cycle. Not with revenge, not with words, with transformation. Because when you rise in silence, they start to feel the void. When you pull your energy back, they realize what they lost. From this point forward, you'll learn the 9 Stoic disciplines of emotional power, not to punish them, but to reclaim yourself. The Stoics taught that the root of suffering isn't rejection, it's attachment to outcomes you can't control. You've been trying to change someone's perception, but you forgot the only real battlefield is inside your own mind. So today, your first commandment is simple: detach. Not out of apathy, but out of mastery. You no longer chase what should come freely. When they ignore your presence, let them. When they delay their response, stay unmoved. Every time you resist the urge to prove your worth, you strengthen the muscle of inner control. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. Understand what that means. The one who appears indifferent holds the higher ground. Because power flows towards stillness. The more you detach from needing to be seen, the more visible you become. This is the paradox of Stoic attraction. Silence becomes the loudest language of value. Stop explaining yourself to those who already decided not to listen. Stop filling the silence just to avoid discomfort. Your words once had power until you used them to beg for understanding. Now, it's time to let silence speak for you. Strategic silence isn't withdrawal, it's command. It tells the other person, "I am not competing for your attention anymore." When you stop reacting, you shift the dynamic. You no longer dance to their rhythm. They start to feel the absence of your noise. And that absence, it's louder than any argument. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." When your thoughts are calm, your silence becomes magnetic. Don't announce your distance. Don't make a scene. Just disappear from the chaos with dignity. Because when you stop feeding someone with constant reassurance, they are left with the echo of their own emptiness. And that's when the realization begins. Every ounce of energy you spend trying to be noticed by someone blind to your worth is energy stolen from your own evolution. The Stoics would call that a misuse of will. You can't control their eyes, but you can command your focus. From this moment, turn that focus inward. Redirect every thought you used to waste on them toward your own rebuilding. Train your body. Read what sharpens your mind. Build what reminds you of your strength. Because when you start pouring attention back into yourself, something radical happens. Your energy changes frequency. The same person who once overlooked you will feel it. Even in silence, Seneca wrote, "He who conquers himself is the mightiest warrior." And he was right. The battle isn't for validation, it's for mastery. When your attention becomes self-centered in the healthiest sense, you rise above needing approval. You stop chasing value because you're too busy creating it. Disappearance, when chosen with awareness, becomes a statement louder than confrontation. You don't need to storm out or announce your departure. You simply withdraw your presence with precision. Controlled absence is a Stoic act of power. It's not escape, it's elevation. It says, "I will no longer exist where I am not valued." When you remove yourself calmly, you give the other person a gift they didn't know they needed. The silence of consequence. They begin to feel what your presence once balanced. The comfort they took for granted dissolves, Seneca warned. Familiarity breeds contempt. That's why stepping back restores your worth. This is not punishment, it's preservation. It's you saying, "My energy will no longer be background noise." And the moment they realize your presence is no longer guaranteed, that's when the longing begins. Because absence, when done with dignity, exposes everything words never could. Your emotions are the battlefield. Every reaction you give becomes ammunition in someone else's hands. The Stoic understands this and guards emotion like a warrior guards his weapon. And when provoked, stay still. When tested, stay calm. Because nothing dismantles control faster than serenity. The one who wanted to shake you loses power the moment you refuse to tremble. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Freedom begins when you no longer let their chaos dictate your mood. Emotional control doesn't mean numbness. It means clarity. It means you choose your response instead of being dragged by impulse. And here's the irony. When they see they can't trigger you anymore, the control shifts. Your peace becomes their discomfort. Your calm becomes their mirror. Because the one who remains composed under emotional fire is always the one who wins. Real strength isn't loud. It doesn't need to shout, post, or prove. It's felt quietly, deeply, unshakably. When you begin to treat yourself as someone worth protecting, the world adjusts to that energy. You stop chasing love and start radiating it from within. You walk differently. You speak with more intention. Even your silence carries authority. Self-respect is the invisible armor that turns desperation into dignity. The person who once dismissed you begins to notice the difference. Not because you demand their attention, but because you no longer depend on it. Marcus Aurelius said, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy. Stop trying to match their neglect. Rise above it." When you respect yourself, everything you do begins to echo power, from the way you say no to the way you carry your peace. That quiet glow of self-assurance is what makes people rethink what they lost. There comes a moment when you must decide what you will no longer tolerate. That decision, not your words, not your emotions, changes everything. Boundaries are not walls. They're gates of self-worth. They filter what deserves your presence. When you finally say, "This is where it ends," you reclaim control of your life. People test limits not because they're cruel, but because you allowed them to. Stoicism teaches that discipline in your standards earns more respect than endless forgiveness. Epictetus said, "It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows." The same applies here. When someone thinks you'll always forgive, they never learn your value. So be firm, unapologetic, clear. You're not being harsh, you're being honest. And the moment they realize the old version of you, the one who tolerated disrespect, no longer exists, the balance of power shifts permanently in your favor. Generosity without wisdom becomes self-destruction. You were never meant to pour endlessly into people who treat your energy like an open tap. Stoicism teaches that virtue must walk hand in hand with reason. Even kindness must have discipline. From now on, give intentionally. Give where your effort multiplies, not where it vanishes. Stop offering your best to those who show up only when they need something. Seneca said, "He who gives carelessly teaches others to be ungrateful." That's the truth. When you become selective, your value sharpens. The people around you begin to understand. Access to you is earned, not assumed. Your time, your care, your attention. These are currencies of high worth. Spend them like a Stoic, deliberately, sparingly, purposefully, because when you stop overgiving, you stop bleeding energy. And when you stop bleeding, you start building power. Quiet, magnetic, unshakable power. Indifference is not cruelty, it is mastery. It is the realization that your peace cannot be purchased by someone else's whims. The Stoics understood this. Once you stop reacting to what lies outside your control, you become untouchable. When they provoke, you do not retaliate. When they ignore, you do not beg. Your calm becomes a mirror reflecting their own neediness, their own imbalance. Epictetus said, "Don't waste your energy trying to please someone who doesn't value you." Indifference is the ultimate leverage. The person who once had power over you now has none. They cannot manipulate, unsettle, or destabilize your inner world. This isn't detachment from life. It's engagement from a place of strength. You observe, you act when necessary, but you never surrender your center. When someone sees they no longer control your emotions, they feel the absence of their influence, and that absence can be more compelling than any confrontation. Confidence rooted in others' approval is fragile. True self-confidence rises from inner clarity and self-knowledge. When you know your worth, nothing outside can undermine it. Walk into any space with this truth. You don't need validation, recognition, or permission. Your presence alone is enough. Marcus Aurelius said, "Self-reliance is not arrogance. It is wisdom. This wisdom is magnetic. It does not demand attention, it commands it." The person who once dismissed you senses it immediately. They notice your independence, your composure, your refusal to bend to their expectations. Self-confidence is both shield and beacon. It protects you from manipulation and simultaneously draws respect. When you stop waiting to be chosen and start choosing yourself, the game transforms. Those who underestimated you realize they lost access to someone unshakably grounded. And that realization hits harder than any confrontation ever could. Transformation doesn't need an audience. True change happens quietly, deliberately, invisibly. When you evolve without announcing it, you become unpredictable, irresistible, and impossible to ignore. The person who once took you for granted will notice not because you demanded attention, but because your energy shifted, your priorities changed. Your presence is no longer at their disposal. Seneca wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor." Applying this to relationships, when you stop craving their approval, you become rich in self-respect and inner authority. This is the power of silent transformation, a personal revolution that communicates value without a single word. You don't need drama, explanations, or revenge. Your life itself becomes a reflection of strength, balance, and dignity. And in that reflection, those who once ignored you see the loss of what they took for granted. Integrity isn't a performance. It's a constant alignment between thought, word, and action. When you act with unwavering principles, people can't help but notice the one who ignored your presence starts to see a pattern they cannot manipulate. Your reliability, your self-discipline, your refusal to compromise your standards. It creates tension, curiosity, and, ultimately, respect. Marcus Aurelius said, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. Your life becomes the proof." Not the argument. Consistency in values signals strength. It shows that you are not at the mercy of moods, desires, or external validation. And the person who once dismissed you now feels the weight of what they underestimated. They see someone immovable, someone who cannot be taken lightly. Integrity draws attention silently, but its impact is unmistakable. Those who once ignored you cannot unsee it. Presence is more than being physically there. It's intentional energy radiating through every word, gesture, and silence. When you show up with purpose, people feel it, even those who once ignored you. Your attention is no longer disposable. Every interaction becomes measured, deliberate, and meaningful. This is not manipulation, it is the Stoic mastery of self and circumstance. Seneca said, "He who is brave is free." Presence with purpose is freedom in motion, freedom from chaos, from distraction, and from the need to please. When someone senses that your energy is selective, they begin to notice how rare it is. They see that your focus is earned, not automatic. This magnetic presence transforms ordinary interactions into lessons in respect. The person who once overlooked you now encounters someone untouchable, deliberate, and unforgettable. Purposeful presence doesn't demand acknowledgement. It commands it without speaking. Detachment is not indifference to life. It is control over how life affects you. The Stoics teach that emotional dependence is the fastest route to being manipulated. The moment you tie your self-worth to someone else's behavior, you give away power. Learn to observe without reacting. Let their words and actions roll off you. The one who once unsettled you will suddenly find they cannot provoke, cannot sway, cannot control. Your center becomes immovable. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react that matters." This is the essence of strategic detachment. By refusing to be drawn into chaos, you flip the dynamic. They notice the change, the calm, the neutrality, the refusal to respond to their attempts to dominate your emotional state. Detachment does not harm you, it frees you. And in that freedom, you become magnetic, respected, and feared not for aggression, but for unshakable equilibrium. Stop being everywhere for everyone. Visibility is a weapon when wielded with precision. The Stoics understood that attention is currency, and those who don't value you shouldn't spend it. Appear where it matters. Speak when it serves your purpose. Your presence should be rare enough to be felt, strong enough to be remembered. Seneca wrote, "Associate with people who will make a better man of you." Apply this to attention. Your energy is too valuable to scatter. By being selectively visible, you create a gravitational pull. Those who once ignored you start to wonder, where did that energy go? You stop chasing recognition. Recognition starts chasing you. The one who once dismissed your presence now perceives it as a privilege, not a given. This is the art of being unforgettable without performing, being noticed without pleading, and commanding attention by simply being deliberate. The most disarming force is not confrontation, not shouting, not proving yourself. It is your refusal to react. The Stoics called this the mastery of the mind over circumstance. When provoked, respond with calm. When ignored, do nothing. When challenged, stay unmoved. your restraint becomes the mirror that exposes their instability. Epictetus said, "He who is not disturbed by what he cannot control is invincible." Every moment you resist reaction, you shift power from the chaotic outside to the disciplined inside. The person who once thought they could manipulate or unsettle you now feels powerless. They begin to question themselves, their control, their assumptions. Non-reactivity is not passivity. It's the silent assertion of dominance. It demonstrates that your peace cannot be taken, only granted by yourself. This is the paradox. The less you chase, the more influence you hold, the less you react, the more unforgettable you become. This is the culmination, all the silence, detachment, boundaries, self-respect, and strategic presence converge into one undeniable truth. You are enough. You no longer chase approval because you have claimed your value. The person who once ignored you feels the shift, not because you forced it, but because you became unshakable. They sense what they lost. Someone who cannot be controlled, someone whose energy is sovereign. Marcus Aurelius said, "You were born to live, not to please others." Apply this relentlessly. Your life is yours to govern. Your peace is yours to protect. No more begging, no more explanations, no more wasted energy. You act with intention, speak with clarity, and move with purpose. Your transformation radiates, undeniable and magnetic. This is Stoic power in its purest form. Inner mastery that commands respect, inspires admiration, and liberates your soul. Now, the only validation that matters comes from within. You are enough, and that is the ultimate victory. Please like, share, leave comments below the video to encourage us to make more videos like this. And remember, the person who doesn't appreciate you yesterday may be the one who regrets you the most tomorrow.